Happy holidays, Penn State football fans. Bob Flounders, joined at the moment by David Jones, downtown Pennsylvania. He's with his good buddy Kaiser the dog. Dave, first off, happy holidays. Second off, what'd you get Kaiser for Christmas?
What was that voice?
I don't know. Did you like it?
It sounded like John Wilsbach.
Wait, you can't say it to me because then he's going to know. So, did you get him anything for Christmas?
I have it right here, as a matter of fact.
Well, it's okay.
We're gonna. It's the mammoth snake biter. Look at this thing.
That's like the biggest chew toy, tug of war toy I think I've ever seen.
Well,
how long will he need to go through that?
He better not. He's not the kind who takes it apart. He wants to play tug of war.
Okay.
He will not. Yeah, he'll not swallow things, really.
All right.
He'll either
is that all you got him for Christmas?
Or hide them. Huh?
Is that all you got him for Christmas?
Yeah, we'll wrap it, and he'll get a big kick out of it. He just wants to be included.
Okay.
If you know anything about German Shepherds,
all the wrapping paper.
They just want, yeah. He'll think that's funny, and he'll be like, "Hey, look at me! I'm unwrapping the present," and he's wagging his tail, and he knows.
Yeah. I wonder what he got you. I guess we'll have to wait. He likes to wait till the day of.
Probably one of the bones from the backyard. He'll bring it up, dig it up.
It might be human. Who knows? It could be anything.
It could be a fox. He hates foxes. Do you have foxes? You don't have foxes where you live.
Us city folks do not have foxes.
We got them out here in the woods. They make these crazy noises at night. They bark, and it goes like that, and he loses his mind. He loses his freaking mind. He hates foxes. I mean, he really, really hates them.
All right.
You've never heard that before?
I've heard the bark, but I've never heard a human make the bark of the front. So,
here, I've got it right here. I got it. We got time. I'll play this.
Yeah, sure. Now you're getting your dog upset. Oh. All right, Dave. Hey, listen. Let's talk about Penn State's not new AD, but first year AD, Patrick Kraft. You got a nice little sesh with him on Friday. Had some very interesting things to report about maybe some of his vision and his plans, but that was the first time you really had a chance to really talk to him. It wasn't in person, but what did you think?
I liked him, but I like a lot of guys who talk a big game. I mean, I like people who are willing to win the press conference, even if they don't follow through on anything they do. I love that. And that's the question: will he follow through on any of these big ideas? What did you think of him? And you had the big session in the media room, and you were there, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
And also he was out at Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days. He was just getting started.
Yeah,
he's certainly an energetic guy. He seems like, well, he's an impressive guy, but just listening to James Franklin talk about him. I think that James feels really good about having Patrick as an advocate and somebody who can. He always references the fact that he trusts Patrick to take things off his plate that he feels like need to be done, but James would rather deal with some more football stuff, and he thinks that Patrick kind of gets that. And so far so good, but it does seem like that's going to be a nice little alliance.
Well, I wanted to talk to him about things that I didn't necessarily think the press corps at large were interested in, but it sort of branched into other stuff. For instance, he's interested in bringing back the idea. I mean, he wants to pursue the Winter Classic. Did you see that?
You kind of had hinted that to me a couple days ago that I saw your story, and I just think he said something about. So it was funny. He said Friday he was talking generally speaking about, how can we get more use out of Beaver Stadium?
Yeah.
How can we get more use out of the BJC if necessary? But he was talking about, Beaver Stadium, just to use it 7 days a year. It really the math doesn't add up. And he's like, then somebody brought up the college football playoffs and if Penn State ever had a chance to host a game. In fact, I'm paraphrasing, he goes, hey, look, you can talk all you want about winterizing the stadium. We're going to play it. If Penn State's got a home game, we're going to play it. If I have to flush a few toilets, we're going to play that game at Beaver Stadium.
And I was talking to my son. I was talking to Nick yesterday. I mean, I don't know that, like most millennials who are kind of peripherally involved in, he likes the Steelers. He likes watching the NFL with his friends, but he's not really involved in college football because he didn't go to a campus where they had college football. He went to Point Park in Pittsburgh. So he doesn't really understand all the arcane details about the new 12-team playoff. And I said, you understand there were, and I'm getting ready to write a thing on this in about a week about, you understand in the 12-team system they're going to bring out here in a couple of years, for the first time, they're going to have Southern teams coming north, essentially in the middle of the winter. And he said, so you're saying these SEC teams never come up? I said, they never come up here. They don't leave the South. They almost none of them ever leave the South. And that's really true. I mean, when the Southern teams have come up, of course, it's always September and the weather's nice. So this is it's an unprecedented occurrence, really. The Southern teams, the Southern power teams in the SEC or the Big 12 coming north in the middle of the winter to play cold weather football has never happened before. And it's happened in the NFL. You've had Miami coming up to Buffalo, playing playoff games or whatever, but it's never happened in college football. So it's unprecedented. It's kind of cool. And we did touch on that too. I was curious about how, before the Winter Classic had been a non-starter essentially because they didn't want to reopen Beaver Stadium. Once they shut down the pipes and everything, it's very involved and costly to get it back up again. So Kraft said essentially they'll just keep it open for another 3 weeks until I don't know that they've done the dates on the college football playoff first round. Have they yet? Have they announced the dates for 2024? Yeah. Well, they will soon. And I'm thinking it'll probably be about now, like the first round of home games. Yeah. They'll give everyone a couple, 3 weeks to rest. Then the first round will be around December 17th, 19th at home sites. 12 plays at 5, 11 plays at 6, 10 plays at 7, 9 plays at 8. Under that system, in the past 8 years of the playoff and this year, Penn State would have been involved in that 4 different times in 16, 17, 19, and this year. They would have only hosted one game in 16 when they won the Big Ten because they were number 5 that year. They would have hosted the number 12, which I believe was Western Michigan. Was that PJ Fleck's last?
Those 5-12 matchups. No, that's the hoops thing. Never mind. Anyway, you're right. It would have been 5-12.
But he said the same thing. I mean, we'll just keep the place open. And the problem really will be the logistics of parking because you were not around for the 95 Michigan game where it snowed 16 inches.
Was that the 34-8 game?
Huh?
What was the game that Michigan beat them like 35-8 on the way to the net?
No. That was I think Curtis Enos was on that team. That was 97 when they won the Big Ten title. They won the national title, or at least half of it.
Half of it, Dave. They only won half.
This was 2 years before. This was the Joe Nastasi fake field goal game where he ran in. And, there were – I was watching the Dolphins-Bills game with Nick also, or at least the replay, and I told him, look, they're throwing snowballs onto the field every time the Dolphins run a play. And they were doing the same thing in that 95 game. And Joe ran down the sideline and started going like this at all the students, and they just started throwing snowballs at him.
Ooh.
Which reminded me of a Michigan game when I was a student at Ohio State in '82. It was a beautiful day. We started it for November 23rd or whatever it was. It's like 50 degrees. And we started a paper wad fight with pages of programs. And it soon spread into like half of the upper deck in C deck. And we're all just tearing pages and throwing them at each other. When you saw the replay the next morning on WOSU, they had a wide shot and you could actually see what looked like a snowball fight. And the ushers up there said, "You stop that right now!" And we all just started throwing paper at them. I mean, they couldn't do anything.
Vicious. That's just vicious. I don't know. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know what I would be more excited about. I'm actually excited about a Winter Classic because I do like hockey. I'd be curious to see in Beaver Stadium how they would pull that off. But I mean, Pennsylvania's I think it's a pretty good hockey state, and I think it would be very, very well received.
Yeah, I've had some discussions with guys I know who are either peripherally or seriously involved in the NHL. They're either Flyers or Penguins fans, and the verdict is mixed on whether that'll work. First of all, the sightlines in Beaver Stadium are not great regardless. It's not even like a baseball park. Haven't they had that thing at Fenway and they've had it at several
they've had it at Yankee Stadium, but it's been like reduced.
Yeah, and at least that way you have a corner that you can put the rink into, so these people at least can see the game. But in Beaver Stadium, I guess they'd put it in a corner there also, and you just do the best you can. You see the game the best you can. And my friends are like, who is going to go up in there, especially if it snows and all the parking is on grass? That's just going to be verboten. You're not going to be able to park in those spots. Who's going to deal with that? And then who's going to deal with going up? Which freaks are going to actually go sit in the cold in 25 degrees or whatever to watch a hockey game outside? And I said, do you know these people? I mean, they ice fish. They're not normal people, some of these people. So I don't know. What do you think? You think that it'd fly?
Well, I mean, if you get 15 to 20,000 people that are interested in going, that actually alleviates the problem of using the whole stadium. You could just kind of you could probably use, I mean, it's so big, you could probably use like half the stadium. There'll be alcohol sales, so that's a big plus for hockey fans. But I mean, you're not going to get 100,000 people to go watch.
Well, what do they usually get? What do they usually get in a Winter Classic? Because it's always January 1st, right?
Well, I mean, a hockey arena is usually like 17 or 18,000 max. But I mean, if you could get 20, I think it would be worthwhile, especially for the newness of it. I mean, I think there would be enough people willing to drive from Philly and Pittsburgh and even State College that you could get enough people to make it worthwhile. I'd like to see it at least once.
Would you go?
Well, I'd probably end up covering it, so yeah.
You'd be up in your nice warm press box with your free press food. I'll write your article for you. I'll go sit up there with you. It's so anyway. That was interesting that he just came out with that. It's not like I was looking for it. I was comparing some other occurrences of considering the use of Beaver Stadium, and he just piped up and said he wants to do it. He really wants to actively pursue it. You could have the Flyers, the Penguins in there, or you could have one of them and say Terry Pegula's the big Penn State donor, Buffalo Sabres. Yeah, well, he'd probably want to be involved. So maybe he'd foot some of the bill. Who knows? Anyway, that was part of the interview. A lot of the rest of it dealt with basketball, and he said he's very willing. Micah Shrewsberry mentioned a few days ago, the Palestra game is coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be here, unfortunately. I'm going to be in LA at the national championship game. I think it's January 7, and they're going to do it again. They've done one with Michigan State 5 years ago. They did one with Iowa 3 years ago, and they're doing it again with Purdue. Micah Shrewsberry's mentor, Matt Painter, agreed to it this year on January 7th. And we got into, why not do another one of these in some other venue? And Micah Shrewsberry wants to do it. He wants to play games in Pennsylvania. So I mentioned the Giants Center to Pat Kraft.
Yeah.
He said, He's never been there, but he'd certainly be open to that. He's familiar with the Liacouras Center at Temple because he worked there. And it's very similar. Have you been to Liacouras at Temple?
I have not.
They're almost exactly the same size and age. And so, it's a perfect place for a Penn State basketball game. If you had a Big Ten opponent in there and made that a home game, I think they'd get a better crowd there than they would in the Jordan Center on the average Wednesday night, don't you?
Yeah. Easier to get to, bigger area to draw from.
Yeah.
A lot of Penn State fans in that corridor, a lot.
I think they'd easily sell that out if they played Iowa or Michigan State or somebody like that.
How's Pat Kraft never been to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it's the sweetest place on earth.
I think he should come to Hershey, Pennsylvania. And we got into also the Jordan Center, which has been a interminable, continual headache because I don't know if fans realize this. Penn State doesn't really run it.
Yeah, they lease it.
Yeah, they're tenants. They're essentially tenants of the Jordan Center. And the management is like notoriously recalcitrant about everything. They don't want to do any idea. They just say no, and they're basically a pain in the ass. There was a time up there. Micah didn't know this, and I don't think Pat did either. I think there was a time about 6 years ago where they completely envelop the upper deck with a curtain now. They don't even sell those seats. And they started doing that about 6-8 years ago, just covering it with this black curtain. But they sold out the lower bowl for a really popular game up there on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. So there's all these seats up there. All they have to do is push a button, and the curtain would have done this. No, they just closed the ticket windows and left like 400, 500 people out there unable to buy a ticket. That's the Jordan Center management.
Who negotiated this deal? I don't understand how they don't.
They needed it in order to fund it in the first place. They needed state money, and I believe, it's been so long. It was the mid-'90s, but they decided to do it that way, and I don't think they can unhinge from it. It's basically lock solid, and that's it. Anyway, the problem with the Jordan Center is the seats on the baseline are awful. It extends way back. It's like it was built for wrestling, believe it or not. It was built so you could put 8 NCAA wrestling mats in there and have the NCAA wrestling tournament. Okay. Can you believe that? That was a priority. And they've had it there once in 28 years life of the place. They've had the NCAA wrestling tournament once. So, but yet, if you try to sit on the baseline seats, I mean, it's like a phone call. It's like another zip code. And you can't see the game from there. So we were talking about he's willing to maybe push the floor into one end. Yeah. I came up with this, and he said, absolutely. And then actually erect, like the Carrier Dome does, once football season's over, they erect bleachers and play basketball in there and have, 25, 30,000 people if the team is good. You could do the same thing in the Jordan Center and all of a sudden create a more intimate atmosphere. So he's up for that. I don't know if, like I said, talk is cheap, and we'll see if he actually does any of these things. But he seems amenable to new ideas, put it that way.
What if somebody accidentally blew up the Bryce Jordan Center overnight with no one in it?
You can't see that. You can't say that stuff anymore, man. Feds are coming to get you now.
I was kidding. For those listening,
I had nothing to do with this statement. I just want to say right now,
I am divesting myself from this entire conversation.
Although I wouldn't be against it if it happened. I wouldn't be. Yeah. Well, they're not. They're not going to start over. And he said that they are not building another arena for basketball. It's not really a priority anyway. I mean, wrestling is more of a priority up there. It actually is.
What do you make of this guy's energy level? He seems like he's always like on go.
You think there's some Red Bull involved there? Guys are on Red Bull all the time.
Not Red Bull.
It's been on Red Bull all the time.
He could just be a coffee drinker. Like, like the heavy stuff. Also, but it always seems like he's always ready. Like if you want to talk, he's ready to talk.
Remember,
he doesn't like run away from anything. He's like, no, I can't do it.
It reminds me of Magda and Something About Mary. When she accidentally she's vacuuming under the sofa. Yeah, I can imagine him doing that.
No one's getting that reference but me. He was a little weather beaten. Magda was a little weather beaten in that movie.
You love Something About Mary.
I do. I do.
And so you're getting ready to go to the Rose Bowl. When are you going to go? The 29th?
I think we fly out the 28th because the first availability is the 29th, and got to settle in a little bit. So, and then we come back. I think we come back the 3rd. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully the weather cooperates on the way out and the way back. Hopefully it's a great game. Speaking of the Rose Bowl, Illinois was out there once. Ron Zook was the coach, but I think, Dave, here's my segue. I think Illinois' current coach is way better than Ron Zook. What say you? Brett Bielema.
That was an involved segue. That took some twists and turns. Jim Nantz couldn't have done that better.
6-year deal for the man. I thought he was the Big Ten Coach of the Year. I know Harbaugh's team is unbeaten, but for my money, I thought he did the best coaching job.
Yeah, I'm sure Harbaugh got it last year, right? I'm sure he did. Yeah. You could rationalize, as these things often go.
They had him beat. They had him beat this year, and it kind of got away from him a little bit with the Zebras.
Yeah, they did not get any favors in that game, and that tends to happen in this league sometimes. And you kind of cock your head and go, the conspiracy theorist in you starts to work. But look at it this way: he did it in a very short period of time, and he actually did it in 2 stages because last year he had a bunch of super seniors in there. Yeah. And then he kind of had to redo it again this year because he didn't have a lot of those guys. And he transitioned into a new bunch of players. He's lost his DC, Ryan Walters.
Yeah, to Purdue,
who is
right?
becoming one of the youngest head coaches in D1 football at neighbor Purdue. People don't know this, but Purdue and Illinois are actually closer together than any other 2 schools in the Big Ten. They're only like 90 miles away.
Did not know that.
That is, see, you didn't know that. So that's, I don't know about Ryan. Would you hire a guy like that who'd never been a head coach to a Big Ten job?
I mean, that just seems to be the trend anymore, right? It's not, it's the now guy, not necessarily a guy that has to have like the most extensive resume, but the defense the last couple of years was certainly pretty good. I don't know how much Bielema had to do with that, but obviously I'm a little surprised that the Brahms going back home. Are you?
Well, it kind of reminded me of like the first time they came at O'Brien and he almost left. People have no idea how close he was to leaving after year 1 here at Penn State. And then he did it after year 2. I think maybe Jeff Brom thought it wouldn't look good to only be in Purdue a couple of years the first time they came at him. I was shocked that he didn't go the first time because that's his home. That's his school. I think they came bigger this year. They kind of made a make-do hire from Appalachian State the first time. Didn't work out great. And then they really came at him this year. I don't know that it's necessarily a better situation. It's an ACC school. You're going to get half the money that you do at Purdue simply because of the TV contract. The Big Ten TV contract is so much richer. Big Ten schools are going to get $70 million a year during the middle of that contract. The ACC, for people who don't know, signed a really stupid long-term deal with ESPN that locks them into, I think it's $34 million per school per year.
Really stupid.
It was just short-sighted. And for over a decade, and everyone's locked into that money. They can't. I don't think ESPN will ever renegotiate it. Why would they? So you're living at Louisville with essentially half the money for everything. But I guess you're on an even playing field. I guess you can make the playoff now at Louisville since we have a 12-team playoff. Maybe that had something to do with it because you could rationalize maybe making the playoff as the second best team in the ACC now whereas before you had to be one of the 4 best, and it was impossible. So that might have had something to do with Brom's thinking too. It's going to be all about making the playoff on the 12-team playoff, just like it's been making the NCAA tournament for basketball coaches. Now it's roughly the same thing. If you make the tournament, you're golden. Unless you're like a Kentucky or a North Carolina, then you have to make progress in the tournament. Most schools, you just make the tournament, you're good. You're good as a coach. They're not going to fire you. And now it's going to be you make the tournament in college football too. And Louisville, I would say they got a pretty good shot at making the 12-team tournament with a better coach, a good coach, because it's not a very strong league, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I just I drifted a little bit only because I just can't get over how bad the Louisville men's basketball team is, and I just shake my head every time I see one of their box scores. I know we're talking football, but Dave, they might be like one of the 5 worst teams in the country.
They finally won a couple games. They started 0-9, and this has a segue into something else I talked to Pat Kraft about. Believe it or not, we're coming full circle.
Good.
Because Micah Shrewsberry's childhood dream team and through high school and when he was a young man was Louisville. Kenny Payne is just crashing and burning there in his first year. They started 0-9. I think now they're 2-9. They got a couple of wins. But no one can really believe they'd blow him up after 1 year. But, I mean, I texted somebody in that area I know really well, and I said, could they fire him after 1 year? And you would know this guy's name, and he said, "Why wait that long?" You would. I'll tell you after. I can't betray his confidence, but you probably have an idea who it is.
Yeah,
and people are not happy. So everyone knows that if Shrewsberry makes the NCAA tournament with this hodgepodge team they got right now, which is heavy on 3-ball, it's going to probably be kind of a one-trick pony because they don't have any interior presence at all. I don't know if he can do it, but if they go like 10-10 in the league and they got that big scalp at Illinois, they can do it. They're going to make the tournament because their resume is pretty good. And then do you keep – how do you pay up? Do you pay up? Penn State's never paid up for a basketball coach. All of a sudden, you're going to have something of a bidding war, I think, for Micah Shrewsberry after his second year. Penn State's never had to deal with anything like this, a bidding war over its basketball coach. But let me tell you, if he does this, he will be a hot commodity and not just to Louisville. So I asked Pat, I wanted to get him on record mainly. Are you gonna pay up to keep this guy? Because he's going to attract some affluent suitors. And he said, absolutely, positively, yes. But, we're talking salary in the ballpark of what James Franklin's doing. They've never paid that kind of money for a basketball coach. They've always just made their $4 or $5 million on profit on men's basketball, which is peanuts compared to football. They clear 50, 60 million on football. And they don't try. Their rationale has been, we're going to try as little as possible, pay the coach $1.2 million or whatever. The arena situation's a mess, and we don't care. It'll be a turnkey operation. We'll still make $4 or $5 million with the TV contract anyway. We don't care. That's always been their attitude about college basketball. With this guy, it has to change if they want to keep him. And Pat Kraft said, it's not just about keeping a great coach. It's making a commitment to the sport. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said, which is very, very different if you go back through all the other athletic directors at Penn State. I mean, Sandy Barber talked a good game, but she didn't really pay Pat Chambers any more than the rest of them to Chalice or as the market bears. But she did hire this guy, so you got to give her credit for that. I think she fell into it, but she found Micah Shrewsberry. She listened to the right people, put it that way.
So the last couple decades, it went Tim Curley to Dave Joyner to Sandy, and now we're at Pat.
You can add in Jim Tarman on the other end and Joe. Before that. Remember, Joe was the athletic director in 1980.
It's been quite a journey for the AD ship at Penn State, wouldn't you say?
Well, basketball has never, ever been a priority. They haven't even believed in it as some sort of figurehead that we want to do well in everything. So we want to do well in men's basketball and we'll pay for it. They've never believed in that. I mean, they talk about it, but they don't really believe in it. And let's be honest here. Pat Kraft's talking about a lot of things, but until he actually gets the money to keep Micah Shrewsberry, if something like this happens, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. I mean, he's got a tough job to make the NCAA tournament with this team and even be attractive to other schools. But people are taking notice of him. I mean, they're just doing things really well fundamentally. They are a fun team to watch, and they just do every fundamental thing well. And believe me, people are paying attention to them. If they make the NCAA tournament, schools are going to come out of it won't just be schools; it'll be NBA franchises. Because remember, he was the lead assistant for the Boston Celtics for 6 years. I mean, they will have a lot of interest in him.
All right. Well, that's a situation that bears watching, and we're going to hold Pat Kraft to his word. I think we have to. We're obligated to, so we will. One more note, Dave, before we get rid of it. How about Pat Narduzzi getting a former Penn State quarterback through the transfer portal? How about that?
Yeah.
I
always thought Veyu had possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, especially at that level, he kind of reminded me of Kenny Pickett. Doesn't he remind you of that kind of savvy?
He's got a little personality. He's got a little panache. If I can use that word, Penn State football fans, panache. He's got a little panache to him.
The small sample size we saw him, and I think he's a legitimate get for them. And certainly they're not going to be able to use him here. He's not going to wait around to be a backup to Drew Aller. So why not? Yeah. And that's kind of a sneaky quarterbacks league, the ACC right now. Got some good. That is one thing.
Quarterback friendly league too. They like to chuck it around.
Right.
Well, good for him. Good for him. I'm glad. I always wondered how good he could be. He had those moments against Rutgers, but you never knew. And then it was pretty clear that once the 5-star came a calling, that he wasn't going to have much of a chance at Penn State. So hopefully he'll get an opportunity. And, he was smart enough maybe not to sign at like Rutgers and just get his brains beat in. So he probably picked the right school to where he has a legitimate chance to play. And, they're going to sling it.
What is your problem with Rutgers? Why don't you just get it out there right now?
Dave, I've just seen too much bad offensive football from Rutgers. You just don't want to be a quarterback there. You get beat up.
I can't remember. Who was it that got hurt? And the player, did you see that last week? Now I can't remember who it is. And he said, they didn't really need me. It was Rutgers. We weren't.
Yeah. No, it was Raheem Jarrett.
Oh, yeah, of course. In Maryland.
Yeah, the wideout. Yeah. He's like, yeah.
It was Rutgers. I mean,
he's honest.
That was freaking awesome.
All right, Davo. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to you next week for one final podcast before I head west. But don't forget to wrap all of Kaiser's presents, and I'm sure he's busy wrapping his for you right now. Happy holidays to you and your family.
I'll be flying out on the 5th right after you fly back on the 3rd. That's why.
And you're going to the Rams Stadium, right?
Yes, it's the national championship at SoFi, and Nick's going to be shooting it for us. He got his credential approved, so everything's good.
Are you going to wear a tuxedo or anything? Did you before we go? Did you sent me that? Not a Dumb and Dumber tuxedo.
No, you sent that tape of the Astro Blue Bonnet Bowl to me with the Nebraska playing Texas Tech.
Yeah, you're welcome for that.
Merle Harmon with the tuxedo. Is that who it was?
Yeah. How drunk was Alex Hawkins? How drunk was he? He was teed up before the game.
And a young Ron Franklin down on the sideline, also in a tuxedo.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones to rewatch, just for all of it. The pageantry, just the stands, Texas Tech, Nebraska, Vince Ferragamo. I loved all of it.
The tearaway jerseys. Rick
Burns needed like 35 jerseys. I don't know what they made them out of back then, but I'm sure there was a reason for it.
Lots of country boy woofing in the background. They had a mic down on the field, and a lot of that going on. Yeah. And every Texas Tech player, when they introduced them, the stiff introductions where they say their name, every guy was from Texas. It was just a different world. Every single guy on the team was from Texas.
That surface looks so fun to play on, too. I'm sure those guys.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Elvin Bethea probably would have played 20 years if he didn't have to play on that Mike Brady's backyard.
All right, Davo. Until we meet again.
Have a good flight.
All right. See ya.